hearing is still going, why don't we open the regularly scheduled selectmen's meeting? We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we gotta go to 5:15 on this one?
Correct.
Okay.
Hopefully, if I lose track, please bring me back.
I'll be out with that. Chad can too, yeah.
How are we setting this up? Any plans yet? Is she gonna come in here?
Do you want me to get the proclamation for
I
you?
think he's gonna walk over.
Yeah, well, I think is she gonna be sitting here?
Seal.
Is she gonna be sitting there?
No, just throw it underneath.
There's a lot going on.
While we're waiting, we're going to make motions at the end of the meeting. It looks like, because with the CDBG, all these motions have to be made.
Okay. Should we do this?
She can sit here.
So we closed, yeah, because we already closed it out, so we'll be all right.
Yep, we go back to that.
Okay.
Thanks for letting us hear you speaking
With the cane.
Do you want me to hold the cane for you and hand it to you?
Yeah, sure.
That's for your birthday. That's for your birthday. You need to turn around. You need to turn around so that they can see you. Franco has something for you. This is the Selectboard, and they're celebrating your 100th birthday. You're kidding.
So we're going to start off this meeting with some fun. I'm going to read this proclamation through Aurelia Valier Ordway, 100th birthday celebration, April 23rd, 2019.
Yo, you can't kill a Frenchman. Put that in.
Aurelia Valier Ordway was born on 23rd April 1919 in Rosemere, Quebec, to Arthur and Esther Turner Valier. She was 5 years old when her mother passed away from tuberculosis. Her father, being a lumber camp cook, was unable to take care of the 5-year-old and placed her with the nuns in Manchester, New Hampshire. Are you going to be okay to stand through this whole thing? I'm a wealth of information. Do we want a chair for her? Or are we gonna...
Do you want to sit down or you want to stay standing?
No, I better stay standing.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Around 1932, Eleanor Sullivan, a school teacher, took Aurelia in as a traveling companion. They made many trips to New York and Philadelphia to attend the theater. If any of this is wrong, I didn't think of it.
What?
If any of it is wrong, I didn't think of it.
Oh.
In the early 1940s, she met and married Paul Sidney Ordway of Littleton. She traveled by train to Orlando, Florida, to be married with Arthur and Lorraine Kenny as attendants. Once Paul was sent to the Aleutian Islands during World War II, Aurelia returned to Littleton and stayed with Eleanor Sullivan on Summit Avenue, where she currently lives. During the years Paul was away, she worked at Spencer Drug on Main Street in Littleton. Paul and Aurelia had 3 children. Orly and Jeffrey were born in Littleton. The family then moved to Saint-Agathe-de-Mont, Quebec in the early 1950s, where Linda was born. The family enjoyed the annual winter carnival, ice skating on the frozen lake, Saint-Agathe, and skiing on nearby slopes. The family returned to Littleton in 1960, where Aurelia continued to be a stay-at-home mom and raised their 3 children. Through the years in Littleton, Aurelia worked on her on her flower gardens and taught skiing to elementary school children at the Remick Park Road Tow. She took up quilting and made quilts for members of the family. She sewed many dresses for her daughters, as well as knitted sweaters, socks, hats, skirts, and vests. Once Paul semi-retired from the lumber business in the early 90s, they spent every day either playing golf, Mom was a great putter, during the summer months, and cross-country skied during the winter. In between seasons, when the weather permitted, they would also walk the golf course. She maintained a vegetable garden and canned each year as well. In 1997, Paul passed away and Aurelia continued to live in her family home in Littleton. She bought herself a truck and got a dog, Andre, a black standard poodle.
After Andre Rio.
After Andre Rio? Okay. Until she was in her mid-90s, she drove to and from shopping and appointments. Aurelia is now celebrating 100 years and looking forward to her family coming for a visit in June 2019. Family and friends will be celebrating her birthday on 22nd June 2019 with an open house at the Littleton Community Center. Please stop by and say hello and wish this incredible woman a happy birthday.
Where did you get all that information?
I suspect we had some input from that one over
I'm
there.
guilty as charged. I'm guilty. You're the culprit. I'm a culprit.
Along with this card, I want to present you with the
Oh, God.
Congratulations.
Put it away.
Happy birthday.
No, I got another
Do
one.
we sing happy birthday?
We should. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Aurelia. Happy birthday to you.
Can't kill a turkey.
Do you want to blow your candles out?
What?
You want to blow your candles out? Give me this. This has to disappear.
She's not allowed. You got that enough there?
Want to bring it closer?
There you go. There's one. We got another one.
There it is.
Good job. Who wants the,
Who wants to
yeah,
cut it?
yeah, sure. Like, cut the cake and everyone
Felicia.
can partake.
You can come help.
But I really want more comfortable if you didn't have to stand this whole time.
Do you want to sit down?
Yeah. I get her.
Are we doing this? We diving in the cake now, or we,
You want to do the cake now?
Sure.
You sure?
We should.
doesn't matter to me, got all night.
We should. I can help hand out too. Of course.
Are we gonna go on to our next subject? or
Yeah,
we're
we
doing-
probably should.
What's that?
We're gonna go on to our next subject now, or?
So we've got 4 minutes before we can
Yeah.
close out the other
I didn't know if we were going on to.
and then we'll do some cleanup of that one.
Okay.
Linda, do you want help as far as handing those out? You want to have somebody do it, or do you want to do that? Great idea.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Might be worth it.
Yeah. No, that would.
Is that big enough?
She's so precious.
Okay,
So do you want
so we need to, make these announcements. Once we close the other one out, we'll go
All
back
right,
to this.
okay.
Give them time to.
All right.
Nathan?
We're gonna take them over to a different room and cut it. We're gonna take them and cut them in.
Rudy just told me he's illegal. Rudy just told me he's an illegal alien.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
What's he say? What do you
It's an illegal alien.
Ice cutter.
Did you explain, Andrew? Did you
Yeah, we're
explain?
gonna talk to him.
Okay.
Thank you. Happy
Thank you,
birthday.
congratulations.
Happy birthday. Make sure she doesn't forget her flowers.
Give him
Yeah.
presents.
Yeah.
You got him?
She's on the move, right?
Yeah, she is.
You aren't gonna catch her.
And her secret is her day is wasted and have black.
Oh, there you go.
That's what she tells me every day.
That's right. How are you, Tom? Wait for the crowd to settle down. You know, the other thing I was going to tell you, Tony Olafo's here. He would like to share just a snippet on the town's master plan, and we don't have any.
You're gonna do it. You're gonna get our ass kicked.
It's not fun.
I'm sorry, you can't do it. This time. Oh, well, it didn't get to the agenda.
What didn't?
Tony just wants to share how things are going in the town's master plan. Yes.
Tony wants to share a plug on the master plan.
Oh, yeah.
It's not on our agenda.
Public comment.
Yeah, okay, we could do that. Yeah.
Public comment's supposed to only be on agenda items.
I blew that last time. when we were in.
Seeing what we can squeeze under.
So what else we have?
Could it be under new business?
Anything in your report?
Yeah, maybe I'll say it under that.
In your
Yeah.
report. Bring it up in your master
And then
plan.
just refer to Tony.
And just say, maybe Tony, you'd like to add something to this.
Okay.
Okay. It's 5:15, so we are able to close the, which one is it? The traffic ordinance public hearing can come to a close. Before we move up to some cleanup on a previous one, I'll entertain a motion to accept the changes as written in the increases as written in the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. All those opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. It's come to my attention that we have to clean up the previous public hearing, which we already closed, but now we can, as a board, we have to make some motions to get this in motion. So you have the list of motions we need, so shoot.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the submittal of the CDBG application,
Seconded.
and that's for $12,000.
Any discussion? Well, that's some discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Next.
Do you want me to do it? Make a motion to adopt the updated housing and community development plan.
I'll second that.
Did you see that? Is that part of our discussion? Okay, sorry, discussion. Was that part of our discussion?
Yeah, I don't know if that plan is, I think you adopted for a 3-year period, and it may still be in effect, but this will,
Oh.
yeah, just reconsider it.
It's in here.
It
It's a
is.
readoption.
Why did I miss it?
It's pretty buried in there.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So I suppose this other one,
Shoot.
Can we do that? All right. So then we already did those two top, then
Yeah.
the third. So I'll make a motion to adopt the residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the project.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
And then finally, I'll make a motion to authorize Andrew Dorset, Littleton Town Manager, to submit the application and sign or execute any and all document necessary to effectuate the potential CDBG contract.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. House cleaning is done?
That's good.
On that one? Okay. And now, what's next on our agenda? Oh, good. Great River Hydro Pilot is next on our agenda. So we had a public hearing on this last week. Although at that time I closed the public input portion of that, I would like to open it up to if there's any new discussion, any new input that we haven't heard yet on that item. Does anybody have anything new from? Go ahead, Bruce.
It came to our, first of all, the other day was our first experience of anybody in turn that were lay people having a look at this supposed pilot. We've never had a pilot before in the town of Littleton. Okay, so this is the first time that we had an opportunity to see it. Was last Thursday of it at a public hearing of it as far as the actual pilot itself. It came to my attention afterwards out of it that there's also a separate article that has been passed by the state of New Hampshire as far as the House of Representatives under HO 700 records. This, I think, can have a substantial effect on cost, possibly through education. I think there's a lot more at stake out of it. I think that we talked about it, and somebody brought it up the other day on initially as to why would a big corporation suddenly pay an additional amount of money over and above what we had received. And as a result of this other article came out which was not discussed on it. We didn't know anything about it. It's been brought to our attention out of it that this was in the works in Congress out of the thing on it and has been passed by the House of Representatives. It hasn't gone to the Senate. And there's also a part of that article in turn that says if they do pass it, it doesn't come into effect for 60 days after they do it, as far as that goes. I think that the school in turn suddenly has some questions. I personally feel that the board should, we don't know enough about this. It's very complicated out of it as far as that goes. I believe, in my reading it and looking at it from what I could see, that the power people in turn do not want to turn around and make what it says in that 700 article, which says the fact that as of March 1st of every year, they've got to disclose all their financial information, both on it to the state of New Hampshire on it. And I believe that what you're getting is a possible kickback as a result of it, that why they're proposing, and they proposed this pilot, the town of Littleton didn't.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second on this? Just because the article's HB 700,
Yes.
It's our understanding, I'm somewhat familiar with it, we have investigated that, and HB 700 has no impact whatsoever on this pilot. And it has impact on Littleton in other areas. We do have an email here from the consultants that it does not apply to power generation plants. at all. So it has no impact on this pilot whatsoever.
That's not what I read it.
Okay, well, that's what-
It is in here, and first of all,
Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you back
I
there.
can't imagine the fact that suddenly this didn't come out in last week's hearing, out of the thing on it, because of the fact, I don't think the public knew it.
Because it doesn't apply, Bruce. It doesn't apply to this. We do have, I'm sorry, we do have our consultant again who can speak more intelligent than I can on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue of House Bill 700, which was mentioned, has been discussed. Let me explain to you what House Bill 700 is. House Bill 700 is a bill that came out of the last court case at the Board of Land and Tax Appeals when the towns and cities won the value of electric distribution property only in the streets, the poles and wires. When they won, there were 63 cases, 63 towns and cities, and they won it 100%. The good governor decided that the utilities needed a break on their taxes, so he introduced legislation to create book value as the method of value. And book value was original cost less depreciation, like you pay in your taxes. That bill would have hurt the town of Littleton beyond any measure, because you have utility property in the town of Littleton that's in the order of $225 to $240 million of your tax base. And that's where it stood 3.5 years ago. This has been known for a very long time. Your legislators have been involved. They've been involved in testifying. We represent the town of Littleton, so we have been at the legislature for 3.5 years on this. We have been providing your legislators, your board, with the impacts of these different bills. In the last 3.5 years, House Bill 700, which was ultimately intended to be just to relieve the distribution utilities that have poles and wires in the streets, because that's the only part of a tax bill for the utility that they could isolate to the state of New Hampshire to try to affect rate reduction by taking it away from property taxes. We effectively were able to eliminate from this bill all electric generation in the state, including all hydroelectric plants, including all generation in Littleton. So we got $182 million out of the bill for you, going into about 18 months ago. The second step in the goal of the communities and the municipal association was to eliminate all electric transmission lines, of which you host 500,000 kilovolt lines through New England hydroelectric transmission coming down from Canada. You host 230,000 volt lines from the Moore station that go and feed the substation to Whitefield, and there's a spur off to feed Littleton Power Light, and they go back down to to Monroe and pick up Commonford. We were able to get all electric transmission lines eliminated from this bill to above 115,000 volts and above. So that saved all of your transmission system. Now, the bill has passed the House on a unanimous voice vote. It has been 3.5 years and 18 months of study commission. It is a compromise bill for the local utility street homes. Your electric company is not taxable. It doesn't affect your electric company. You do have New Hampshire Electric Co-op. You have $740,000 worth of New Hampshire Electric Co-op. If New Hampshire Electric Co-op in Littleton never builds another pole, it will reduce that value 35% over 5 years at a rate of approximately 7% a year. It has a 5-year phase down. Now, why is it a 5-year phase down? Because a lot of communities in the state only use the state's value, and they only value the property at book value. And public service was very concerned at how much more taxes they had to pay. So they agreed to a phase down so that all of the towns like Littleton that do fair value were able to phase down. Public service has about, they have $33.7 million worth of property in Littleton, public service. About $250,000 of that is classified as distribution. In that distribution, that will go down, all else being equal, about 35%. You came out of House Bill 700, the town of Littleton, in the best shape of any town in the state of New Hampshire, other than Monroe. You and Monroe are 1 and 2, okay, out of that bill. Bill's going to the Senate on Thursday for a floor vote on the Senate. So that's the effect. There is no effect on water. There's no effect on the transmission lines. And it is going to a floor vote in the Senate. It has no impact on these discussions of a pilot. But also, I would caution you to upset the apple cart, because you are the big winners in the state, you and Monroe.
Because we have most of transmission.
Because you have such an enormous amount of utility property and its transmission and generation. Okay? Does that help clarify
Thank you.
that?
I didn't go with the idea of upsetting anything from the point of that. That wasn't my intentions anyway. My intentions were, if you don't know it and you didn't hear it, and we didn't hear it the other day, suddenly you're left with a real unknown. And I think the school department is the same thing on it. So it does affect some parts of this thing as they reduce down, according to what this gentleman has said.
No, not the pilot, not what we're here to discuss. It discusses other property, other taxable property, but it does not impact this pilot.
Well,
Am I correct? It does not impact this pilot at all.
House Bill 700 has zero impact on
So
this
it's
pilot
not relevant to our
and the
discussions about this
value
pilot.
of the hydroelectric.
this pilot, in turn, that we read, again, didn't have an opportunity of getting it or looking at it, but within that pilot, there is some things in there that says if they shut it down for a 3-month period of time, I believe that it reduces back on the cost factor, and I think it goes back to the values that are set by the state, which are lower. So it does have some effects in what can happen on, if they run out of this. This is what's said in the
Sure,
pilot.
yeah, I understand.
Now, one of the things I read in that pilot was,
That last one you need to know.
one of them
Yeah.
I read in there was that they gave Littleton as an address. To give you an example. I think this is a state law that you can't do what they got in that pilot, which is said you had to use Massachusetts as an address. Every business in the state of New Hampshire has to have a corporate address to be able to do it. Most of the time, it's all done by attorney and stuff. When they have a corporate address, if you have to write to somebody. This particular pilot says we've got to notify the people down in Massachusetts. That's not the way the state law reads. State law reads, if Home Depot has them, all of them, they all have addresses in the state of New Hampshire on them. So I don't think it
Has this pilot been vetted by our attorneys?
Yes.
I'll take our legal advice from the attorneys.
That's fine, but I don't think that it's correct, and
Okay.
what our ultimate thing is that we still think that you should not vote on it yet.
I understand.
We think that you should study it.
Yeah.
Actually, I would like to see that you get another independent.
I also want to comment on your previous comment, and please expand on it if I don't comment enough. The issue of whether, if they shut down for 3 months, that's not if they just choose to shut down. My understanding is that's as if it's a result of an act of, for lack of a better phrase, an act of God, because I don't know what the phrase was used in the document.
Force majeure.
Yeah, the machinery blows up or something.
Yeah.
They just had one out some other place in the
Yeah.
United States blow up.
Can you expand on that,
Yes,
please?
the shutdown provision is if something happens, and it can be a flood, it can be an earthquake, it can be any of those things. Or it can be something like poor maintenance and poor management, and something happens to the machinery.
Okay.
For a period of 3 months or more, then the parties can choose to exit the pilot and go back on fair market value. Now, that is a double-edged sword for the company, because you can exit that thing and come back in at a much higher value if you want to kick that trigger. So while the company wanted that in the event of something catastrophic, and most companies do, but as a force majeure, I've never seen one that has actually been triggered outside of a catastrophic event. Blown up turbine, steam turbine in one of the wood plants, they still have, they caught fire, blown up, and they still have not triggered that in the wood plants. They've been down for 6 to 9 months before. So just be aware that it is something they asked for. We agreed in negotiating the pilot for you on the one hand. On the other hand, the upside to the town is that it would go back on fair market value,
Okay.
okay?
Does anyone else have input we haven't heard yet?
A little bit.
No?
Go ahead,
Go-
Skylar, would you want to go first? The school board, we recognizing the fact that the town is not obligated to consult with the Board of Education on these things, we are requesting that this be tabled so that it can be, the financial implications can be vetted, because just based on Tom's conversations with the DRA, we're looking at undoing everything that the school board has done to reduce the tax value in the past 3 years. We're looking at that tax rate going up almost $3 based on the numbers that we've received and the potential for this $4 million a year. It's not really adding up for us. So in consultation with the town, I mean, we think it's reasonable to ask for that time to look at this together. If for no other reason, even if this does go through, then to look at ways that we can neutralize the negative impact that this is going to have on the budgeting for the Board of Education.
We can defer to Skip on that.
No, I disagree, and
Okay.
there's misunderstanding on, everybody's been calling everybody and talking to everybody, because there's been this discussion about never having a pilot. You've had settlement agreements. You don't need one because you're not in court. That's why you have a pilot. You can stop, go to court, spend the money, and get a settlement agreement and do exactly the same thing. Now, a power pilot, a renewable energy pilot, is not handled the same as charitable trusts and those types of things. They are equalized on the MS1 form exactly as their value would be imputed by the amount of revenue, so that the full school tax on that value is then levied by the town. There is no loss and no impact to the school. It is only the amount that you would always have otherwise gotten for the value that's imputed in the pilot. So the pilot imputes a value of $193 million. The state will impute that at the assumed tax rate of whatever it was, 21 something. They do that to the MS1, they will do it this fall. And that gets put into the column of taxation. You will then be reimbursed when they send out the tax bills for the school, town school portion.
Okay.
Okay, the state school is still charged to the company as it always has been. You never see the state school tax. That's the 83F tax.
Yeah.
They will do their own value and they will calculate their own 83F tax. And then the town's tax bill will be collected, it's in the same bill, in the counties. So there is no impact other than each year you have a fixed amount plus two kickers, two $200,000 kickers. You have a fixed amount. So if the value of that plant were to go down,
Right.
you are protected. School will get more. If the value were to go up on an annual basis, you would then be not getting that. But you are fixing your risk, and you are getting more in the front right now to fix that risk. So you don't lose anything in your budgeting. You budgeted, right now, you're budgeting at $182 million. That's your current budget for that plant.
193, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You have not valued it in 2019. You don't know if that 182 million is going to stick. You don't know if it's going to go down. We know from the current bids that the values in the hydroelectric plants dropped 17% last year around the state. You survived that because you had an agreement from the court. You did not have to reduce more 17%. You're starting at 17% plus higher than that pilot, with the pilot, than you would otherwise have gone down for the 2018 value. You can call up Berlin, you can ask them, how much did your hydro drop? Very similar plant. You can look at Monroe, how much did it drop? And that's because of the drop in capacity pricing at the New England ISO and the drop in the natural gas pricing. It dropped again in the bids this year in February. If we go fair market value, it's more probable than not that the value of your hydro plant would be dropping, not rising, in the immediate future. That's the benefit you gain. The company gains certainty. They don't get
Oh,
this
sure.
up and down.
Especially if
They
it's an investment
gain
thing. Yeah.
certainty.
Yeah,
Let's focus on the issue. So
Yeah.
the concern of the school board, as I understand it, is that the monies aren't distributed the same way as they have been
Right.
under the pilot.
Right.
And you're telling me they're distributed
They
exactly
are
the same way?
distributed exactly the same,
except the
because
insurance.
you
and the-
impute the value, put it on the MS1, and send out your tax bill. Now, that's not the same as other types of charitable contribution pilots or these other types of things. It is different than those. But these pilot has its own law on how it's distributed, and that's the way it's been working.
I'm neither a resident nor an elected official. I'm an employee of SAU-84. May I speak?
Does the board have an objection?
It's fine.
What the board is asking for at this point is for you to table this motion so that we can have further discussion. The people at the Department of Revenue, the lady at the Department of Revenue I spoke with on Friday, who has spent 15 years in assessment, says that the pilot will come in to the town as revenue and reduce the assessed valuation for everything else. So it would have a significant impact on the rate. Going forward, any increases in our budget, in fact, increases in your budget, would be borne solely by the other 77% of your present tax base, rather than be shared equally amongst all taxpayers. Until we can get those things clarified, that's why my board is requesting you to table this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I have to interject in that. 15 to 20 years ago, the pilots came in as revenue. The gentleman is absolutely correct. That, for the very reasons that he's talking about, especially with the school districts, and like Whitefield, for example, that was changed. And there's separate legislation that has changed that. And the legislation was passed 4 or 5 years ago. We worked on that legislation, where the revenue from the pilot of this type is no longer taken on the balance sheet as revenue. It is imputed as tax value, so that that does not happen to the school districts. Now, that piece of legislation, we know from the other pilots in the North Country that that is exactly how they do it. I don't know who the gentleman spoke to the DRA,
Okay.
but it contradicts what they have actually been doing.
Okay.
But it used to be done that way. That is true. So if you talk to somebody that's been there for 20 years that didn't do the annual pilot calculations, that is true. It used to be revenue-based like that. And those were the concerns and the problems that created the new law that stopped that.
Thank you. You would want to say something earlier, Skylar?
Well, you asked for new information. I'll give you a little bit of the history of how this started. Great American Hydro approached the town manager and wanted a meeting with he and I and their president and representatives. I immediately refused and said I didn't want to get into rate discussions. And they came back several times and said, no, we just want to, we're the new guys in town, we just want to meet and greet. And I said, okay, as long as there's no discussion about rates or legalities or anything. So we did meet, and they were true to their word. And we met again, and that's when they approached the pilot and said, would you consider talking about a pilot? I said, on 2 conditions. Number 1, our consultant is involved. Number 2, our local committee, Mr. Hennessy, Mr. Merrill, and Mr. Considine are involved. Only then will I allow discussions to take place.
Thank you. I guess we'll...
Was there any discussion? Can I ask that? Was there any discussion?
Well,
Said that-
obviously there was, because we've got a pilot in front of us to vote on.
And who was the discussion with?
More damn committee.
More damn committee
Consultants.
and a consultant and a town manager.
Then can I ask, I'm not convinced after meeting the other day that the more damn committee ever discussed that or had a
Okay,
discussion on it.
I understand your position on that, but I specifically asked, no, I understand. I specifically asked the Mordam committee, the members that were there, if they supported this agreement, and they stated they support
That's
it.
not what the question was. Now, you're changing. That's not what we're asking about. We're asking about, was there any discussion with this group?
They told you they had 3 meetings with them. I don't want to misstate you, but I think you said 3 meetings on it?
Not with them.
Okay, but 3 meetings on the
I'll give
pilot.
a history of that if you like.
Please do. Let's put this to bed, because this is not new. Let's put this to bed.
All right, we met in, I think it was June. They presented us a what-if pilot. Would we be open to a pilot? It was in June of last year. I have the slides here. Shortly after that, we signed a non-disclosure form, 3 of us. I'm sure Amy and Brian did as well. After that, the majority of the discussion took place between the consultants of Sanssouci and with Andrew, I'm sure, in the loop. We came back in March with their first swag, or their first draft of this proposal. And we said that it's got to be some mechanism to protect the town of Littleton, whether it be some type of a, I call it a kicker, but if the tax rate moves up, it triggers something in, and they came up with a legal finesse as well, how to do it. And then, of course, White Mountain, the hydro people countered with their proposal with the 24.5%, whatever it was. That wasn't ours. We just wanted the mechanism in there. Then our 3rd meeting was with you, just prior to the meeting on Thursday. That's the history of our meeting. Donnie and I did not talk with, I don't think I could have talked in-depth discussion, legally or.
So I think some of the terms are raising some questions within the pilot, not so much having a pilot itself. So the turbine that they were, I think they were saying that it might be a $10 million investment that they would be making. How much would $10 million?
We said 5.
It said 10.
Well, it said 5 to 10.
They told us it was 5 million, Skip offered 10.
I said figure 10 when you're all said and done, they say 5. That's our job, to make sure we get all 10.
Well, that's good, but what would that be valued at, assessed at, dollar-wise? How many taxes would we get off of that?
If it did go to 10, you'd get about $210,000 this year. If it were finished. It's going to take, it hasn't even been submitted to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They're saying 2023. We actually expect it.
That's just on the capital, right?
What's that?
That's just on the capital.
That's
not counting the revenue production piece of it.
Right, the revenue production piece, yeah, the capital, if it's going to be 10 million, it's a small turbine. The revenue production piece on that is going to be at least equal to its capital. We don't know if it'll be more or less, because there's some environmental things going on with that also, where they may spend more than the revenue production side. But I think you could pretty well figure it's going to be close to the amount of capital spent, would be the amount of value you would gain in the future.
So that would equal how much in taxes?
About $200,000 in taxes, more or less, a year.
Well, I was just thinking that, I was thinking more than that. I was thinking probably like $220,000, $230,000. And I was thinking, $100,000, I don't want to skin anyone alive on this, but I don't want to go less than 50%. And so if something is valued at this and we could potentially get over $200,000, I would want to at least get 50% of what the potential is. So I thought that was a little weak in there.
Well,
but anyways, I know you're saying it's 5.
They're telling the feds they're going to spend $5 million.
Yeah.
We can't sit there and say you're going to overrun the budget like you always do. Therefore, we want a kicker for 10. It's what they've told the feds, $5 million, and that's what the $100,000 is.
Just have
now, at such time that the pilot finishes in 2024, there's a very good chance they're not even going to be finished the construction of this in 2024. At which time you'll get all of that cash come in. in the next round, so to speak. So I think that they're asking for a fair kicker based on what they're telling the Fed. What we're telling the town is likely it's probably gonna be something more because they will likely overrun that budget, that's all. We can't prove it because they haven't done it yet.
Okay,
But you
thanks.
understand what
I understand what you're saying, but this, I'm trying to get through this.
I
We've
went
got,
through that pilot once, but I thought there was a $50,000 payment in the event that they put it in, and then there was another $50,000.
that's because their taxes are paid over in two
Yeah, I
tax
understand,
periods.
that's $100,000, what she's talking about is $200,000, and he's talking about a higher figure. If you enter into the pilot and do it with those particular conditions, you're not gonna be able to increase it. Am I
Okay,
saying that correctly?
let's, listen, we've discussed,
With some future construction that's not.
excuse me, we've discussed this pilot and that issue of the kicker, it's been discussed. I understand what it is, I think the board understands what it is, we can argue whether it's enough or not, that's part of why we have to decide, everything's a negotiation.
Isn't that
I don't
what the
think.
hearing is about? This is a hearing.
This thing has been negotiated. We've already discussed that kicker. It was discussed last week to a great extent. I understand that. I appreciate your comments. I just don't want to keep rehashing the same thing. It's got to be, it's a consideration of ours when we decide whether this pilot deal is good for the town or not.
It could be.
Yeah.
But it can also not be.
Yeah, well, that's all.
And I think that that's the concern that
Yeah.
a bunch of us have.
If we were certain, if we knew this would be easy. If everybody knew exactly what was going to happen over the next 5 years, we wouldn't be having this discussion. This would be easy. But everything we decide here has an element of risk. Our decision.
Have you discussed it with this group at all?
With this group?
The new owners?
No, I've reviewed. I'm not in the negotiations.
Who does? Other than
Andrew and our consultant.
Is Andrew,
the committee.
is Andrew and a crew person to be able to discuss on that? Have you asked him?
He's a town manager. That gives him.
Yeah, I understand he's a town manager. That's not my question. And when you do your assessing, it all comes down to the three.
I'm sorry. No, we're going to stop this discussion now.
I have the right to be able to ask that question.
We're going to stop this discussion now because if you want to follow up and say that what we're doing is based on an illegal agreement, illegal negotiation, you're going to have to take that up later. I'm not going to sit here and listen to this for another 15 minutes about whether we've gone through the appropriate process. Our attorneys have vetted this. Our committee has vetted this. Our consultants have vetted this. We have to make a decision whether we want to go forward.
I want to ask the question, has Andrew have the ability to be able to represent us?
Apparently, he just did.
No.
So it's done.
He might have just did. I asked you, most of the time, when you in turn submit, you vote on to give him permission. He's a town manager under the town manager form of government. If there's never been a vote, and he's representing in here to set with these people, he doesn't have the power to do so.
I can't remember if there was an actual vote. I seem to be. Do you remember who I assume we did.
Oh, yeah, you guys have voted to authorize me for town manager form of government. But just to clarify,
That's not what you remember.
just to clarify on the process, the Moore Dam Committee entertained the concept of a pilot. The Moore Dam Committee gave direction of things they wanted to see in a pilot to the consultant and myself. We work directly with the other party. We bring back each version to the Moore Dam Committee.
I understand.
And ultimately, upon recommendation from the Moore Dam Committee, it's under your authority to approve, not mine.
To make the decision.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that you don't have authority to negotiate it. I'm not buying it.
No, I
So,
didn't suggest it, I'm asking.
okay, well, you're right. That's what your question is driven by.
So I'm not the same, but if we said no to it, we'd come in at something less than $183 million. I'm reading that right. So, and then we'd roll the dice in the next 4 years, right?
Exactly.
And to make up that 11 million in the capacity market and diving over the next 3, we know.
We know it's guys, that's right.
Okay.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, we can discuss it further. Do you want to continue the
Well,
public discussion?
because I know the school, I know they're concerned about this, and I, was given this it's Title V taxation. It's persons and property liable to taxation, payment in lieu of taxes for renewable generation facilities. And point number 3, and it somewhat applies, but it doesn't, because we don't have more than one school district within Littleton, but it says if a municipality that contains more than one school district receives a payment in lieu of taxes under this section, the proceeds shall be prorated to the districts the same manner as local taxes are prorated. So we pull out, the fact that it's not a multiple school district, and we're only focusing on one. So it's still prorated the same way as it would be regular taxes. So, and this is in Title V taxation, and there's many sources. It was updated July 28th, 2014. And I know it is a concern. So, but according to this, and maybe Skip, you can.
That's the law change.
Okay.
We got through, it's now 5 years ago, because of the very issue that this gentleman and this lady brought up, which was true prior to that. And that's exactly correct what you're saying there. If it's a district, then you're gonna spread it out as well as one town.
But where it's just the one school, it will be the exact same thing as if it was taxes, regular taxes.
And the way they do that exactly is they take the amount of cash, they impute the tax bill on the MS1, and then they divide it into the cash and create the value, and that becomes the value on the tax bill that goes to that taxpayer. And all that cash comes in as a tax bill, so the school's tax rate is then covered, and it's covered by that tax bill. You've got the four pieces on the bill, and that bill has all the school money in it, because a $193 million tax bill with all tax rates went to that, to the dam. Not, it used to be literally a bill, one-page bill.
Right.
In the old days, Whitefield would send a bill to the wood plant. And, same with Bethlehem. And they would just send a bill out and take the cash in, and it would reduce revenue requirements. That's what you were saying, and that was true.
Right, and so the new language with the RSAs and everything, is that included in this agreement, the updated language? Because I see there's...
No, it isn't, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, this agreement is between us and the taxpayer.
Right.
The way that the taxes are levied, this taxpayer has no choice. So he doesn't have a say in that. You don't put it in the agreement and say, I want it done this way or that way.
Right.
Okay.
They have a responsibility to do it under the law, which gets you 100% of your cash. That taxpayer has no say on that. That's why it's not in the agreement. Okay? What's in the agreement is that we are doing a pilot under RSA blank.
Okay.
Under RSA blank, the pilot goes to the law she just read.
I gotta get this thing wrapped up.
Okay, and Franco, I appreciate that.
No, I'm sorry, I was talking to him.
No, but we're just looking for that reassurance, because knowing how the taxpayers feel about their tax rates.
Yeah, no,
the school gets a lot of backlash.
When it was presented to me, I was very concerned about it as well, I understand.
So just knowing that, and if it does turn out to be something more wonky than we're expecting, that you guys will be open to working with us and helping to neutralize any kind of negative impact that it may have. Hopefully it won't, I'm taking your word for it.
If there is a negative impact and it's wonky, which we've already done this for 5 years now, and it was wonky the first year because of the wind farm up in northern New Hampshire. That made problems that actually helped fix that language. But so far, it hasn't wonked out.
Okay.
If it were to wonk out, it is a problem with the way the person at the DRA is calculating it. The bill on the wall is right. It's the human being calculating it or telling somebody what they're doing.
Okay.
The DRA is still not necessarily, what's the right word? Sometimes the most up-to-speed agency in the state.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be tactful. They set your tax rates, but your selectman and your town manager have the right to question that at all times. That's the wonk, is that if they set that tax rate wrong, you can stop, say, no, you did it wrong, for the following reason.
Do you want to take...
Is it very relevant what he has to say, or we...
I just pulled it up online.
I mean, it's gotta be...
It's relevant to speak.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
You're gonna have to hold it in there.
Yeah, we'll get it done.
This is Brian Fogg on the phone. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to point out that with most of what Skip said was just 100% correct. but the RSA 21J3, Roman numeral 13, is in the agreement. And RSA 21.3, Roman numeral 13, expressly says that the renewable generation facility property subject to a payment in lieu of taxes under RSA 7274 as may be equitable and just, so that any public taxes that may be apportioned among them shall be equal and just. And it's the equalization component of the language for the renewable generation facility, and is in the agreement actually, and it was in there at the insistence of the town's attorney along with the other RSAs.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Scott?
In addition to instructing the owners of the dam that I wanted the committee and the consultant involved, I then instructed the town manager to spearhead the negotiations with the owners of the dam, the committee, and the consultant. And after it was all done, to have it pass legal, then bring it to the selectmen.
Thank you. Make it quick, please.
This is a very important thing, no matter what it is, and you shouldn't be using the word making it quick. We're all in here.
I'm not making this whole procedure hasn't been quick. I'm asking you to make your comments quick.
My question is, and I believe I read into it a little bit, was that if these people do not pay on time, that it reverts back to the same thing that the public in turn has to pay under, which is a penalty. Am I correct under that?
I didn't pull.
Yes.
Can you pull that out for me? Thank you. The answer is yes.
If they didn't pay their $2 million on time out, if they're going to get penalized the same as everybody else.
The simple answer is yes.
Thank you. Yes.
When it comes out as a tax bill.
Okay. All right. Rudy?
Just 1 minute, it's just a comment. Since the last meeting that we have at the town hall, about this pilot day, I talked with a few taxpayers, okay? They are very concerned about this pilot's agreement. That's what they told me. And they don't believe that you guys should vote on this particular pilot's agreement tonight unless it's for the good benefit of all the taxpayers of Littleton. That's the name, whatever you guys do, just to keep in mind that I don't say majority, a lot of taxpayers are really concerned about this pilot agreement. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we're closing again the public comment section. So now I guess I would entertain a motion so that we can start our discussion on this. Entertain a motion to
we already have a tabled didn't we already have a motion last meeting?
Did we table it or did we close it? We tabled it.
We tabled it.
I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so there is a motion to approve the pilot agreement as negotiated
with the proper wording that council has reviewed.
Do I have a second?
I made the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So, any discussion? I guess I'll start out. I'm sure everybody has comments. I'll start out by saying, as was commented before, we have our professional consultants that are in favor of this. We have our committee that's in favor of this. We have two people who I trust with some knowledge of the future of power generation and revenues, saying that I understand there's a risk when you lock something in at any time, but that it's more likely that, in their opinion, to go down, and they're a hell of a lot smarter than I am, so I'd take their lead on that as well. As far as delaying the vote, I'm reluctant to, because I know time is beginning to be of the essence. I really think we should do it. And to address the comment that Rudy made at the end, I would never vote on something, at least personally, on something that I didn't think wasn't in the best interest of the voters and the taxpayers of the town of Littleton. And this is the same thing, and I do support this pilot.
Well, I guess I agree with Franco. I'd also like to add, you know, this is a serious thing. I mean, it's 25% of our taxes, so we can't come into it lightly. I think it has been vetted out. It's been discussed. I think one of the things that makes the town of Littleton awesome, I think most of us are prejudiced on that, but is our willingness to, you know, go headstrong into something once things are vetted out. We do take risks. And as Franco said too, if this were a guarantee all the way around, it would be a piece of cake. But it's not. So there was some serious discussion, serious research on it. So I would have to agree with everything Franco said, plus with those additional comments.
No, I will agree. I believe this is good for the taxpayer. I think it's good for the town. I think it's been thoroughly vetted by everyone that I know that can really read through this and make the right recommendations and review it properly. I was concerned about the school, and I'm glad to understand that it won't negatively affect the school, at least we hope. And I know we do have the option of renegotiating, and I'm sure if something like that, something crazy did happen, I think all three of us would be in agreement that we need to, you know, be able to protect the school and the taxpayer in that circumstance. So, I think this is good.
Any further discussion? Okay, I guess I'll bring it to a vote.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt. Do you mind if we hear something from the town manager? If it's possible.
Sure. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yep, this has been I would agree with everything that they've said. This has been a very kind of important issue, and it's, like they said, a significant portion of the tax base. I think the stabilization that this provides is going to be a great benefit to the community over the next few years. And I think that the fairness that we went into it with the other side was almost unprecedented. I think from previous experience, we've had a really good negotiation process. And our consultants have really worked really hard to help us understand some of the complex issues that are underlying, you know, between the lines of something like this. I think that it'll be a real good thing for the town for the next 5 years. So.
Okay, before I bring it to a vote, I just want to make a comment. I want to thank you. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank our consultants. I know everybody worked hard on this, and I appreciate your efforts, regardless of how this vote goes, although it appears we know how it's going. So I'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor of the pilot?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. Thanks, Skip.
See you, man. I'll let you go.
Where the hell are we?
Oh, and then just, there was one more meeting that we had in November, just for further clarification.
Too late. Don't bring it up again. Oh, yeah, the report.
Yeah.
We're at the town manager's report.
After all that, here we go. One thing I did want to bring up is the master plan in process. I don't know if anybody's here from the planning board. Mary Menzies, Mr. Chairman, if she could just speak to the master plan update that's part of my report.
Does she want to speak to it?
You want me to?
Yeah, you want to just talk a little bit about the progress and how it's going?
We've been working on updating the town master plan. We've working with consultants from Plymouth who've been doing an excellent job. There's several draft chapters that are currently posted on the town website for people to look at. I think you'll find it's a lot more digestible and easy to understand than the prior master plan. And next Monday morning, there's going to be hearings on 2 of the chapters. Not hearings. There's going to be some focus groups on a couple of the chapters with some people that have expertise and interest in those areas. And the week after that, there's going to be a couple of focus groups on 2 other chapters. But I urge everybody to go on the town website and look and see what's there and make comments. enjoy the work of Resilience Planning. They're doing a great job.
Thank you. Sorry, Tony, didn't want to jump you over you as chairman. I didn't see that.
I didn't speak, but yeah, I mean, just to add on.
I didn't see you.
It's okay. 2017, the town gave a warrant article to appropriate funds to update the master plan. We took on this approval from Plymouth, who had previous experience, those individuals had previous experience with our previous master plan. So it's a natural fit. And when I said we've been working on the different chapters over the last couple months with our resilience, we will have a couple breakout sessions on April 29th and May 6th in the morning. If you're interested in participating, you can contact Joanna at the town hall, and she can give you more information about that. We're really excited about it. It's going to be, I don't want to say it's an interactive master plan, but it's not going to be that dry document that we've seen in the past. You'll be able to get some quick information, whet your appetite a little bit, maybe dig in and be able to ask a couple questions on it. And it's a really important document as well. This document will help us plan the future and guide us along the way. So if you have the opportunity to check out the website, I can direct you right to where to go. We'll have more drafts and more information provided. I think we're maybe not halfway through the process at this point, but we're getting close. The next part, like you mentioned, would be to have some impact study groups. So we're going to have some forums, invite some folks in to hear what the public has to say, and more importantly, get their input as well. So more information to come. But thank you, Mary. Perfect.
Thank you, Tony. It's nice we can be on the same level.
Thank you. And I just make one comment from my perspective as briefly being involved with that as the ex officio on the planning board last year. I think Resilience is doing a great job, and the board, at least my experience was the board was really engaged and doing a good job working with them too. So.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. I mean, John, just kind of watching the process from the outside and seeing the interaction between the planning board and Resilience, and they're reaching out specifically to different groups or individuals to really get input, and it's neat to see a plan that's being developed with a lot of input versus just kind of off in some corner.
Okay.
Just a few other things up under the manager's report. Last week we visited Concord. I did a joint visit with the Chamber of Commerce. We were able to meet with the governor of New Hampshire, the head of the BIA, the head of the BEA, and the Concord Chamber, and we had lunch with Senator Starr, and it was very fruitful discussions all around. Just shortly after that, I had a call with the White House staff for coordination for at that time, which was a potential visit. On 4/9, had a meeting with Hitchner Chapman on the variance ZBA hearing. That went okay, but we'll have another one in the near future to be able to get the full project under variance. Of course, I'm always meeting with different departments to keep things going, fire department and 410. CGI, Littleton Filming Coordination, so we've been working with the filming company. I brought that up at a previous meeting. We have ongoing discussions, and we're going to be doing an intro video for the project. I believe it's this week. So. I had my NCIC coordination meeting, so as you know, we work with NCIC on grants administration, grants application, and closeout, and we're regularly working to make sure that our projects are designed in a way and adhere to different grant requirements to make sure that we leverage as much non-local tax dollars as possible. And I do have an updated grant summary for you that we just completed last week, which I'll hand out to you at a later time. Parks and Rec meeting, we're just going over, this is the beginning to run up for a season change of what we're doing. The after-school program will come to an end in the next couple of months, and the summer programming will begin. Our public works, we have a lot of ongoing projects. We've been working to gear up for the construction season. Some of it's already started, as you can see in Amanuset and Saranac Street. Police department, always ongoing things to work with. Last week, we also had a Representative Custer. Her staff was in for an update at the senior center. Had another White House staff call on the 11th. We have our legal discussions of 4114A agreement. We have another one of those in the pipeline, similar to the lease purchase easement and the right-of-way easement. This will be potentially for a project on Mill Street. We had a meeting, a phone conference with a consultant for North Country Council. They're conducting an analysis of their operations and trying to find ways to become a better organization. Carrie actually sat through that one with me. River District Planning session, so we're working on just getting ready for different activities in the River District, including the completion of the Amanuset and Saranac project, the planned NH design charrette, and the rail trail. We're anticipating a visit from the governor in June, and we want to try to coordinate as much of the activities as we can around that day. And also Pollyanna Day, so all of those, see if we can coordinate all those. We had a send-off for an employee, Frank Prue. He's been with us for, I don't remember how many years, but we did a send-off for him last Friday. He's retiring officially and gonna head to Florida. Also last week, I attended a federal op zone meeting at the White House and the White House conference or office building, and that was really interesting. We talked about different ways that the federal opportunity zone, which Littleton, which is really rare, but our whole town received the designation as a federal opportunity zones. Most places would have a street or a small section of town, but our whole town has been designated. So we talked about different ways that we could potentially encourage up-leveraging of other funds. And so we met with different departments within the executive branch to explore how they could maybe incentivize their programs to encourage, further public investment where private investment is going to happen, because the federal opportunity zone money is all private investment. And so we looked at, some of the things we looked at was the potential to change the way grant applications are scored for, whether it be an EDA or CDBG or USDA housing, those type of things, to give an incentive if the project is within a federal opportunity zone. So we're going to continue looking at different ways to get that going. And Littleton does have several projects that are good candidates for the opportunity zone, and I've been having private meetings with developers and also individuals or corporations who have a capital gains tax liability, because the whole program is based off of that. So last week also we had our Buxton and Scout LSMX coordination, so I'm able to get in and see how much utilization is actually happening from the LSMX Scout. The Scout portal, we only have 2 licenses, which is us, and I'm utilizing someone else to help us manage that. And then the LSMX is one that's available to all small businesses, so I can see if businesses are actually getting in there. And I'm going to keep working on
without revealing any businesses. How are people using it?
Yeah, we have a number of them that have been issued licenses, and it looks like there's more than a handful that are actively using it, and so I'm going to try to follow up and just see what the results are, so that we can use those stories.
I'd really like to hear if it's of value to them, if they feel it's of value to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's one more thing that we were looking at doing with them, which is it's called a GPS study, and so that's one that's really interesting, because you can really tell a lot about the consumers who come into the Littleton market and where they come from. And so there's working with NCIC, looks like we may have a potential for a new grant to help cover some of the technical costs of doing that. That would be another partnership with Buxton, and it would take a year to complete that one, but I'll have more information on that once we move further. And then just one other update, our PEG channel, Granite North TV, we had the equipment was down last week. We started exploring if there was any emergency grant funds to help bring it back up online. It's the equipment that takes the video that's being recorded right now and then uploads it to it used to be channel 2, but whatever that channel is on the cable TV. So I think they were able to reboot it and get it going thanks to the help of the school. I think some school staff assisted in getting the equipment back up. So it is on its last leg, so we're going to keep looking for some alternatives and probably talk with the school to see what their plans are. So that's what I have for now. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
You left off the town manager's report. Aren't I supposed to get served with something?
Oh, I have that in my car. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah,
Just so
that-
everybody knows that their selectmen's being sued.
Yeah. At least what, once a quarter? Yeah. So I think, yeah, these two are, I have to go back and read them. There's
Okay.
two separate issues.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. We've got the tax sale of the town-owned property bid opening. She just handed it to me.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. You're welcome. This being my first one, what, do I read each one or just summarize the?
Yeah, you want to read each one into the record.
All right. I assume they've been confirmed that were all received in time.
Yes.
Okay, so do I say who's made the offer and what their offer is?
Do we read it, we have to read each name to the record?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
The amount.
And the
the
amount,
tax map.
map and lot number. So
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, so this is regarding tax map 25, lot 12. Norman and Kathleen Hall bid $1,800. That's for land only on Hatchbrook Lane. And this is, are these all for the same property?
No.
We don't know.
These
Yeah.
here.
We don't know?
Yeah.
I just didn't know what the offers we got were all for the same property. Okay, this is Hatchbrook Lane property. Tax map 12, tax map 25, lot 12. Douglas Menzies bids $5,000. Just blew the halls out of the water. This is for doesn't have a map. I can't even read this friggin' thing.
Lot
Okay,
number 73 is
Yeah, but it's
Bishop
lot
Street?
73 on Bishop Street, so I don't know if that's 73 Bishop Street or
There's only one on Bishop.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
134.
Right here.
134.
lot 134 on Bishop Street. And the bid is $35,001.
And who was it?
I'm sorry, she's, Michelle Buck,
How much was the amount again?
$35,001. That's
It's a
what's
good
that
bid.
show, Come On Down? They put the $1 in because they gotta beat the Price is Right, thank you. Gotta beat that. It's a solid bid.
Yeah. I was recommending we don't sell that one back.
Okay, this is Larry Toll on tax map 134 Bishop Street, lot 67 through 73. Is that the same property? There's no tax
is.
map. They bid $9,387, or he bid $9,387. I should give me a letter opener for final. All right, Curtis LeMay on 134 Bishop Street, that's the same, bid $2,500. Curtis LeMay on 354 Pleasant Street, bid $2,500. Jeff Wynn on 134 Bishop Street, bid $3,651. Another one of those Price is Right bids. Jeffrey Wynn, at least that's what the return address says. Jeffrey Wynn for 354 Pleasant Street, bid $5,652.
What was the amount on that one?
Okay. This is 122 Bishop Street, that's our, well, this is just an email supporting, I don't know what the hell this is. I own 122 Bishop Street. We went in today, place a sealed bid. I was wondering if the town has a process or would consider allowing a community member to have a garden on the land. Because that was our intention with the land. This is a separate issue I guess we should take up. This sounds like a you issue until it comes to us.
Yep.
That's it, those are the bids.
So we didn't get anything on land on North Littleton Road or any bids on St. Johnsbury Road?
Doesn't appear this.
So what we'll do is, we're gonna have another one of these coming up, and we'll issue those off.
Reissue
again.
those.
Okay.
Please go back to you, Andrew, or someone, seal someone?
There was one thing that had come up with the property on Bishop Street, and that was just the way the road configuration. We had looked at it to see if it was needed for snow storage or a turnaround. And it was determined, yeah, we should have something for a turnaround or snow storage in that area. So the request from Public Works was that the town retain that lot for use by the Public Works Department.
You mean the one that we got $35,001 offer on?
Yeah, so that was, I didn't anticipate that one, but I don't know if you want to maybe table that one to see how
Are we
important
supposed to
it is.
vote on these tonight?
You can, yep,
Okay.
or unless you want to hold off. I think we advertised this bid opening. Did the notice say the decision would be made the same night? No, so it's up to you, if you want to consider it for a future meeting.
You guys care?
I don't know, 35,000 seems like awful expensive,
Yeah.
snow storage.
Snow storage.
I know, I just want to make sure that we can function without it if we can,
Yeah.
you know. I know that based on, the house had been abandoned for some time, and then from what I understand, the person who lived there actually didn't use their driveway, and so the town was actually plowing its snow in there, and if a new home goes in there, we just need to make sure that the road is, if our right of way is such a way. It's a good point. This is, I think, good. I think that one thing that we need to always be thinking about when we're doing, working as a development is future considerations for municipal activity. And I'm pretty sure the law recently changed for the way snow is pushed out of the right of way, so we want to be careful.
What is the law, does the law say anything about putting something out to bid and then saying, they're retracting it?
You have the right to reject any and all bids. Yeah. It'd be $35,000 is steep, but good, or steep for a turnaround, but I know from experience, a lawsuit, you'd be happy to get out of it at $35,000, so something to think about.
Yeah, I make a suggestion. Maybe you could discuss this with the proposed bidder, that there'd be an allowance or an easement or something for the town to turn around.
That's probably a good idea.
At a reduced rate, I mean, I'm just throwing it out.
Well, I think under the circumstances, I don't think there's any question we should at least table that one. I wouldn't mind driving down there and seeing what we're talking about for room. I think that email is relevant to that as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that could be a common use. I mean, I don't think we're gonna plow too much snow when you're gardening.
Right. Yeah, I think it'd be good if you'd like to, we could take a visit out there and I could show you show you the conditions there.
I don't have any problem tabling it.
Yeah. So I guess can we just make an overall motion to accept the high bid on those we received and accept tabling that one? Or do we have to vote on each one?
You can vote all as a block.
Yes.
Yeah, our parliamentarian says yes.
The only question I would have, I mean, obviously my brother had one of the highest bids and I would have to recuse myself. I think that'd be the appropriate thing to do.
That's appropriate.
Yeah, so if we grouped them together, I couldn't vote anyway.
Okay.
So it's up, but it's up to you guys.
Well, if it's for high bids.
One more thing.
Just back that one out.
Back that one out.
Do that one separately.
Okay,
You read this,
yeah,
it says
motion all but.
within 3 days, the bidder has to provide his deposit, so you've got 3 days.
Yeah. Well, I think we can easily make, I mean, if we're going with high bid anyways, it doesn't matter if you vote on any of them, right? I mean, we're going with high bids.
You can leave me
You can
out.
abstain.
It's
So I'd
okay.
rather not go through each of these individuals,
Yeah.
so I
All
guess
right.
I'd entertain
Leave it
a
up to you
motion
guys.
to accept the high bids on each of them, except for the,
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
No, Seal's just saying there's only really 2 to vote on if you want, or 3. But
oh, yeah, we
Yeah.
tabled that one.
yeah.
Good point.
we didn't-
Okay, let's do it. Sorry, we talked about that longer than we'd taken the vote. Go ahead. Anybody want to make a motion on the,
I'll do this one.
go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we accept Doug Menzies' proposal for $5,000 on the Land Hatch Brook Lane, map lot 2512, acreage 1.3.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All
The
right,
next
so, let's see.
That'd be this.
This one here.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, to accept the offer of $5,652 from Jeff Wynn for land, 354 Pleasant Street, map 67, lot 43, which is 0.18 acres.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstained.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
One
okay.
abstention. 2 in favor, 1 opposed, no opposed, 1 abstention. And I guess I would propose that we table the 134 Bishop Street bids until we've had a chance to talk to Public Works more and see what that is. And not make a decision on that one.
See how critical.
Guys good with that?
Yeah,
All
I
right,
think it's
so let's
appropriate.
table that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now we're at the board and commission appointment. Based on what we have in front of us, I'm thinking we just go through each term, each committee and board. We'll say who's applied or expressed interest, and then we'll entertain a motion for any, if any, we want to vote on. So we have, for the Budget Committee, we have Jim McMahon has requested reappointment, and Rudy Jelsey has requested appointment. Do I have any motion on that?
I'll make a motion to appoint Jim McMahon to a 3-year term.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 3-0. Planning Board, we have Colin Trahan requesting to be appointed to full vote. Oh, he must be an alternate now?
He is then.
Okay. As well as Calvin Bollier, is that how you say that? And Val Polson has requested reappointment. Kristen Miller has requested appointment, and Rudy Jelsey has requested appointment. I'll entertain a motion for Planning Board.
So we're looking at the reappointment with Val, the position with Calvin, and then Kristen,
Colin,
And then,
and Colin.
Rudy.
Okay.
Do you need help with clarification?
I don't think so. I think it was,
so. No, I mean, I'll
they're
make
just
a
waiting for someone else to make the motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to appoint Colin Trahan, a full voting member, to appoint Calvin Boulier. Is that correct, sir? Boulier, sorry, thank you. Reappoint Val Polson, and also appoint Kristen Miller to 3-year terms.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Zoning Board. Dave Rochefort has requested reappointment. Jerry Lesage has requested reappointment. George Morgan has requested reappointment. And Rudy Gelsey has requested appointment.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint David Rochefort, Jerry Lesage, and George Morgan to 3-year terms.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Conservation Commission. Dorothy Corey has requested reappointment. William Nichols has requested reappointment. Is that reappointment as an alternate or, yeah? He's an alternate and he's requesting reappointment, so I'm assuming that's what that means?
Right.
Okay. Gardner Kellogg has requested reappointment and Melanie Harkless has requested reappointment.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Dorothy Corey, William Nichols, Gardner Kellogg, and Melanie Harkless to the 3-year terms.
Second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have Water and Light Commission. Ralph Ross has requested reappointment. And Rudy Gelsey and Bill Zambernardi have both requested appointment. We can only appoint one. Can I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Ralph Ross.
Second it.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Opera House Commission, Dick Alberini has requested reappointment. That's all we have.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Dick Alberini.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Energy Conservation Commission, we have one request. Peter Cooper has requested reappointment.
I move to reappoint Peter Cooper to a 3-year term.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. River District Commission. We have 2 individuals requesting reappointment. They are Michelle Morin Gray and Dave Ernsberger. And 2 new requests to be appointed, Joe DePalma III and Joe DePalma IV. And we can appoint all of them.
Make a motion to reappoint Michelle Morin Gray and Dave Ernsberger, and to also appoint Joe DePalma III and Joe DePalma IV.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, and we have, on the Transportation Advisory Committee, we have a vacancy, Doug Damko has requested appointment.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Doug Demko to the committee.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And just to clarify, that's a committee of the North Country Council for the public.
There were other committees on an old list, and we don't have requests from anybody to be appointed to those at this time. Are we going to try to?
We'll do a second round
Okay.
later on.
All right. That didn't hurt. What's next? Let's see. New business, there's none. Board of Assessors, there's none. Although I don't know why that, well, I know why the pilot doesn't fall into that. Public comments, I guess we're doing that throughout. I'm gonna change that agenda item in the future, I think.
Yeah, what we might want to do is take up the agenda policy and then have an amendment made to it. We'll do that in a future meeting.
I don't think, I looked at the agenda policy, I don't think we need to amend the policy. I think we just need to change our agenda here. But since we haven't changed our agenda, I will open up the public comment. There being none, we'll end that. I guess are we done?
We're good.
All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Awesome.